Skin Deep is an immersive first person shooter. We got sneezing. We got things getting stuck in your feet. Stalk through a vast non-linear starship and sneak, subvert, and sabotage to survive in this stellar sandbox. You are outnumbered, outgunned, and have no shoes. Welcome to Skin Deep. And welcome to episode 29 of the 5 T's of Stealth. Once again, the 5 T's include tasks, terrain, tools, threats, and tension. These are what I consider to be the fundamentals of stealth gaming. I'd also like to say, as this is a newly released game, released on April 30th, 2025, there's going to be a lot of spoilers, so this is your warning. In Skin Deep, you play as Nina Pasadena, an insurance commando working for MeowCorp, saving cats whose ships have been hijacked by a group of space pirates known as the Numb Bunch. There are 13 missions, with every single one following the same structure. Infiltrate the ship, find the cat keys, free the cats, and then head into space to evacuate. I think it was around the third or fourth mission that added the signal lamp. The signal lamp is used to manually call in the escape pod, and was used by entering Morse code while locked into a specific area. The Morse code was always .line dot, which I interpreted as a little cat face. Once you have placed the cats in the escape pod, you will also enter the pod, where you'll be given quite the arsenal of guns and grenades. This is important because once you exit the pod, pirate reinforcements will arrive in a boarding ship that lines up with one of the original ship's airlocks. At this point, you have two options: eliminate every pirate on the ship, or steal the ship authority key and evacuate on the boarding ship. Aside from this main objective of rescuing the cats, there will be 3 optional objectives per mission. The optional objectives directly correspond to the type of ship you are on. For example, the first level is on a laundromat ship, and the optional objectives relate to that. One of the optional objectives will see you looking for the secret soap stash, while the other, which combines with this, will have you use the soap to overload the washing machines, which will basically malfunction and cover the rooms with soap. 2 different objectives, but they tie in together. The third objective in this level is also present on every other level of the game, and that is to find the hidden cassette tape. This is your optional collectible of the game. These cassette tapes will unlock new songs from the soundtrack to be played back on Nina's ship. Another example would be on a mining ship that has encountered a locked arsenal. However, the mining laser has malfunctioned, and your objective is to exit the ship, fly around switching for the switches to get it running again, then collect the weapons from this vault. These optional objectives seem to only appear after you've completed the mission. However, there are a lot of hints and clues about different mechanics written in notes left by the cats or pirates scattered around the ship. I definitely think I would have been more committed to figuring these optional objectives out if I had seen them from the beginning of the game, but I also can appreciate the mystery each level provides. Now that covers everything with the actual gameplay missions. Naturally, the levels will get more and more difficult and require you to accomplish different things to progress, but we'll cover all that in threats. Instead, I'd now like to talk about the non-gameplay missions. Calling them non-gameplay isn't fair, but I think it's probably the best way to explain it. There are a handful of missions that simply tie into the main plot and act almost like a walking simulator. The first of these missions is some really basic low-gravity platforming to reach a vantage point with your new camera. You'll then zoom in to find your objective. The camera in this mission ties into the main plot because you're attempting to get a picture of the pirate leader that wants Nina dead. That's right, in the tutorial, we learn that the leader of the Numb Bunch wants Nina dead. And by using this camera and zooming in quite an absurd distance, we learn that the pirate captain is actually Nina's clone who wants to kill her for being abandoned in wonky space. And just as we are taking this picture of her, Nina's clone turns and stares directly at you. Now, the story of this game is all about tracking down your clone in order to kill her before she or her pirates kill you. But even this is a bit of a side gig. As I mentioned, Nina Pasadena is an insurance commando working for MeowCorp. So while Nina is saving these cats, she's also asking them to help her track down her clone. After a while, this search leads Nina back to her old partner in crime, Little Lion, who is basically a little cat mob boss, and I adore him. He offers to help Nina for a hefty sum, which is to be used to purchase 3 items rather than just delivering the cash. To obtain the cash, you'll complete a few more normal missions, and then it's back to Little Lion, who leads you to a dentist convention, which is actually a fake front for a space pirate convention. This is where you will find your clone, and then using the tracking bug that Little Lion gives you, you will place it into something she will touch, leading you to her hideout. While at the convention, you must wear a disguise as you make your way to your clone. While here, you'll learn a few things. Your clone is now going by the name Xena, and that she is considered the good twin out of the 2 of you. Finally, you'll come across a private room which contains a bunch of sandwiches for the people, including Xena. All you need to do is find her sandwich and enter the bug. But more and more sandwiches keep appearing, and trying to click on all of them is very time consuming. So the game actually takes away control and speeds up the process for you, which is hilarious. Now that the bug is placed and you're ready to leave, an adoring fan comes into the room and starts harassing you with a bunch of questions under the assumption that you are Xena. I stopped to listen for a bit, but after a while they'll just start looping the same dialogue, and it's time for you to jump out the window and bail. Once you've returned to your ship, Little Lion contacts you to say the bug has worked, but it's not precise enough, and you need to ask the cats you save to help narrow the signal. So go and complete 5 more missions, and success, we've got Xena's location. Once you've returned to your ship again after that 5th mission, you are awarded by MeowCorp as the best agent of the quarter. But then another email comes through saying your ID has been suspended and you need to come in for a performance review. MeowCorp knows that you've been asking the cats for assistance in your personal vendetta, and they don't like that. Your days at MeowCorp are done. But who cares? Because Little Lion arrives to pick you up and prepare for the final battle. Infiltrate Good Twin Castle and confront your clone. Before you make it to Xena, Little Lion asks you not to kill her, as you are both his best friend. Now you will confront Xena, and this might be the funniest boss battle I've ever experienced. Calling it a boss battle is a big stretch, which is why I won't even be covering it in threats. Once you come face to face with Xena, she will copy your every move. So the 2 of you just end up running in circles in her, I guess, throne room while hurling insults at each other the whole time. In the room, there are 2 sets of stairs, and if you climb up one, Xena will climb up the other. However, on one set of stairs, there are randomly some swords. So lead Xena into the swords by walking up the opposite staircase, and in her frustration, she'll break the game of copycat and attack you, but end up falling into a giant hole in the middle of the room. But luckily for her, you reach out a hand to save her, and the game transitions to the beach. On the beach, it's just Nina, Xena, a couple space pirates, Little Lion, and all the cats you've saved throughout the game, chilling and partying. The personality of this game is really just next level and very comedic, which I enjoyed throughout the entire game. When you go to visit Little Lion, he's sitting in a giant chair, but then forces Nina to sit in this tiny little cat chair. There's just so much goofy stuff like that. Not to mention, after every mission, the cats you save will send you an email thanking you and asking you some random questions. Each cat has a very distinct personality and hobby or job. I think my favorite conversation I had was with Gubbo, a skateboarding cat who wanted to hold a cross-cultural trick exchange between humans and cats. For this to work, humans would need a giant board to fit their whole bodies on, and cats would need a really tiny board and just stand on their hind legs. This is just such a ridiculous conversation, and I loved it so much. I think it perfectly conveys the identity of this game. There's quite a few cats with some other professions, including a chef, scuba diver, and even a magician. There will also be constant emails from MeowCorp throughout the game, which talk about overdue training and send you a miniature VR set for some virtual training. This is used to introduce new things into the game, whether that's guns, the signal lamp, or some new challenges and how to deal with them. It might be one of the best tutorial systems I've ever encountered and provides a stress-free environment for testing. On Nina's ship, there are also 2 playable minigames, Gym Cat and Primatez. Gem Cat is all about moving a platform to prevent balls from falling past you while destroying blocks, while Primotez is all about lining up a banana throw by adjusting the angle and the power. Skin Deep is an incredibly unique game that just oozes with style and identity, and I couldn't get enough of its wacky nature. Throughout the 13 missions of Skin Deep, you will sneak through 13 different spaceships. To name a few different ships, there is a laundromat, a vault, an algae refinery, a mech repair ship, a restaurant, and several more. As I mentioned earlier, the optional objectives of each mission greatly depend on what type of ship you are on. Tying into this uniqueness is also the appearance of specific rooms only present in certain ships. It felt like every ship truly had its own identity and wasn't just the same thing with a different name. You could really feel the difference. For example, on the restaurant ship, you'll find a freezer, a drive-through window, a kitchen, and a dining area. You can go to the kitchen to even get food like a burrito or a hot dog, and these are items you can throw to slip up guards. This commitment to giving each ship its own identity is very appreciated. However, I would argue that things start to feel at least a little samey. Regardless of what ship you're in, you'll typically be following the same routine. I do think that these levels provide a good amount of diversity. However, that's mostly just because they let you do whatever the hell you want. Do you want to break the windows in the room you start in and then fly around and infiltrate through another random window? Do you want to sneak through the vents all across the ship? Or do you want to take advantage of the game's verticality and stay high and out of sight? Whatever thought you may have, you can attempt it, and that is always a win in my book. This is going to be a bit tricky because there are an absurd amount of items you can use in this game, and I'm sure I won't hit them all. However, let's start with some of the basics before we get too crazy. First and foremost, there is a zoom lens, which you can use to read notes from a distance or read the label of an item you're holding to find out its purpose. There's also an option to view your memory palace, which contains all the notes that you have read in the ship, so you don't have to keep a tablet which contains info or go searching for that one note from earlier. There is no sprint, but you can crouch, jump, mantle ledges, and crawl through vents. When crawling through vents, a sneeze bar will start to fill up, which will naturally force you to sneeze, which no one wants to do while sneaking. If you do sneeze and one of the pirates hears it, they will start the alarm. You can even choose to lie on your back and roll around, or even be forced into that position if you slip. Some missions even have zip lines you can use to traverse inside or outside of the ship. There are hiding places all over the ship, some that you can actually interact with to hide in, while others are just desks you're hidden under. When hidden in certain locations, you'll become shadowy, which just makes you harder to see, but I've still been spotted while it was activated. There were only two actual hiding places that I saw to interact with. The first was between two giant cube-shaped mats, and the second was like a spy movie hiding in certain locations on the ceiling. You can open and close doors, including to airlocks, as well as flip switches to activate fuse boxes, unlocking the windows, trash chutes, airlocks, and vents. If you don't want to open a door or vent right away, you can peek through to scan the area ahead. Some doors will require a key to unlock, and so will the cat's cages. Later on in the game, airlocks will have two pressure gauges keeping them shut, and if you deactivate both, either by flipping them or throwing an item at them, then the doors will open and pull you and any pirates out. No consequences for you, but that pirate is done for. You can snap to make noise and lure enemies, spit for a long-range sound distraction, and even threaten enemies to set off the alarm. You can even float in space. To get into space, there are a few options. Exit through an airlock, break a window, or get dropped through a trash chute. If you use the airlock, there are no consequences, and there's even a little camera when you're coming back in so you can see inside the room. If you break a window, the doors to that room will not open until the breach is secured, which can be done by lowering a window covering. And if you use the trash chute, you will become smelly, and the pirates can smell you. There is a map system in this game, and it can be extremely helpful. You have a mini map you can pull up at any time, which will show you which doors are locked and how rooms are connected by vents, but it won't show you the vents of each room. If you want more information, you'll need to find an info station. Info stations also display a map, but will additionally show a variety of icons as well as let you save. On the info centers, you can cycle between the locations of other info centers, health stations, toilets, fuse boxes, trash chutes, humans, cats, and the lost and found. The lost and found will store any items that are lost in space, as well as keys that get destroyed. Alright, it's time. Let's jump into the actual items scattered around the spaceships. I'm going to separate these into 3 categories: items that can be activated, items that can be thrown, used, or bashed, and guns. Just guns and grenades. Let's start with what can be activated or interacted with, but is not mobile. There are hand sanitizer stations that will provide a flammable cloud, showers which can remove the smelly status, toilets to be flushed for a distraction, sinks with soap dispensers that also make a flammable cloud, flammable or electrical pipes or tubes on the ship, and health stations to fix you up. Let's move on to the throwables. First of all, there's a lot of items with no fancy interactions from what I can tell, and are more so throwaways if you need to bash something against a window to break it, or maybe a pirate is at 1 HP, so you need some worthless item to throw. This includes things such as metal bars, books, mugs, and empty soda cans. All items include a durability ranking, which is usually around 3. When you are aiming to throw an item, it will slow down time, and you have a stamina bar pop up at this time, which indicates how long you can aim. More excitingly, there are several items that will stun a pirate when thrown at them. Pepper will force them to sneeze. Bashing a pirate with a conductor will electrocute them. Soap and banana peels will make them slip. Ragweed will stun, and on the algae ship, there's an algae sac which will also stun. Once a pirate is stunned from any of these items, you will be able to pounce on them. You will jump onto their backs as the camera shifts to third person, and then you can bash their heads into nearby objects, such as the hand sanitizers or info stations, until they are down and out. There's a couple more items to throw, which are more of a combination. If you find a lighter, throwing it at any flammable cloud will cause an explosion, but sometimes there's nothing around to create said cloud, and that's where the deodorant comes into play. Throwing this will produce a flammable cloud wherever it lands for you to take advantage of. I feel like there were a couple more items that could produce these clouds, but I am not 100% certain on that. Lastly, in this category, there's some other random items like chips that you can eat and aloe, which can heal burn wounds that lower your maximum health, although health stations still work for this same purpose. There's also the duper, which has 2 charges and can duplicate items. I tried to use a duper on another duper to unlock infinite dupers, but sadly it failed, although it is an optional objective on one of the missions. Be careful if you ever want to drop a duper, because throwing it can use up its charges from a misfire. There's even the Telego, which is a little disc you can throw and then teleport to, but I only remember seeing it on one mission. Lastly, we've got the guns and grenades. All 3 guns in this game function the same. They each allow you to check the ammo left in the mag, as well as check to see if there's one in the chamber. The game tells you how many bullets you have in your pockets, but not in the guns. The first gun introduced is the auto pistol. You may think that means it's an automatic weapon, but you would be wrong. The auto pistol has aimbot and will lock in on a pirate's head. Auto for auto aiming. I also like to think of it as auto for an automatic kill, since it's a one-shot, one-kill, but that's probably just me. From what I could tell, every time you find an auto pistol, it will only have 1 bullet, which makes sense all things considered. Next up is the shotgun. This is exactly what you would expect from a pump-action shotgun, except for one key factor. You have to manually pump the shotgun after each shell you fire. I really liked this since it forced me to be more hands-on, but at the same time, I can't tell you how many times I forgot and just panicked. Lastly, the rifle. Not a lot to say here, it's just a fully automatic rifle. Something to keep in mind is that shooting guns around flammable smoke clouds can cause explosions, whether it's you or a space pirate shooting. This is something I'd use to my advantage by setting off a flammable cloud by a pirate, and then I would give away my position to make them shoot at me and in turn blow themselves up. Now there are 5 grenades or explosives. There's TNT that will blow up after a certain amount of time once thrown. Seeker grenades that split into 3 smaller grenades, then track something close by before exploding. Wire grenades, which spread wire around the spot they fall and explode if anything touches them. Hack grenades, which can hack electronics such as locked doors, cameras, and turrets. And finally, EMP grenades, which can disable electronics. My favorites were definitely the wire and hack grenades. The wire grenade I would use to set traps for the pirate reinforcements at the end of the mission, and the hack grenade I loved using on a turret and luring pirates into the room. It's very important to read the notes as you progress through each ship because very often a cat will leave you a note telling you where they hid a gun or grenade. This instantly improves your arsenal and opens up more options. Now there's 2 more important factors to note. At the start of every mission, you will have nothing. And while there's all these different items, they mean nothing if you can't find them. Also, you only have 5 inventory slots, so choose wisely. Before we move on, I want to mention that there's also a handful of things you can do to specifically interact or counter enemies, but let's save those for when we're discussing said enemies. As I was editing this, I realized I forgot to mention the auto defibrillator. This is basically a second chance at life, and if you go down, you can use this to get back up. You only have 1 charge, so if you go down a second time, you will have to find a healing station which will dispense blood to pick you back up. Also, when used, this will knock out the power in whatever room you're in. The main threat present in this game is the space pirate. Pirates are typically equipped with a rifle or shotgun. They will interact with the environment with or without you. If they take damage, they'll go to a health station. If they find some broken electronics, they'll request repairs from the repair bot, which you can also do. They will react to sound, smell, and have a decent detection. There's a little circle that will fill up if they see you, and when it's full, they'll trigger an alarm. Something about this game that I really appreciate is what occurs from a partial lock-on. In most stealth games, if an enemy notices you, they'll come over and check the area, and when they find nothing, they'll just go about their day as if nothing happened. However, in Skin Deep, a partial lock-on will trigger a pirate check-in. A voiceover will state that someone is on the ship and all pirates need to check in. If any pirates fail to check in, then the alarm will start. This is basically just every pirate taking a second to say "Alpha here" until all pirates are accounted for. I think this really encourages you to avoid being sloppy because if you've eliminated any pirates before this time, then obviously you're screwed, so you really want to stay out of sight. This brings me to the first tool I wanted to temporarily avoid, and that's the walkie-talkie. If you have a walkie-talkie when this check-in is occurring, you can check in for the pirates that you've eliminated, which will prevent the alarm. The walkie-talkie is also very important because if an alarm is currently active, you can use it to cancel the alarm. Whenever you are able to use the walkie-talkie, a little flag will pop up telling you, hey, you should interact now. Walkie-talkies only have 3 charges, and if you swap items while talking, it will fail, but still use a charge, so make sure you finish your sentence. Canceling alarms can also be done from any microphones on board the ship, and will show sound waves from your character towards the mic, which prevents you from looking away during the message. This is cool and all, but is it really that important to cancel an alarm? I would absolutely say yes. Yes, it is. Aside from all the pirates just being on high alert and searching for you, when an alarm is triggered, a bar will slowly start to fill up, and once it's full, it will spawn a swordfish. This will continue until the alarm is cancelled, so you need to move quickly. I typically just try to always have a walkie-talkie on me. I think the swordfish are incredibly deadly, and arguably the deadliest thing in the game. You can probably get the gist of it from the name, but this is a little flying fish-like robot with a big knife on the end of it. It will move around, scanning each area as it goes, and if it catches you, it fires incredibly quickly and stabs into you, dealing massive damage. Usually, I ended up dead or very close to it, especially if several pirates were in the room as well. Sometimes you can actually dodge the swordfish and then reactivate it to shoot into an enemy, which is incredibly satisfying. If it does hit you, you'll have to remove it from your body. This is a recurring mechanic for injuries that you take. If you're on fire, you have to manually select to pat down your body to put it out. If you step on glass, you'll have to remove it from your feet. And if you get shot, you have to remove the bullet. There's probably more examples of this, and it's a cool little recovery mechanic. The other detection mechanic that I really appreciate occurs when you go into the vents. If a pirate is locked onto you and you jump into a vent to hide, rather than just losing track of you, they'll actually report that you've gone into the vents, which will trigger a vent purge. You will have a short amount of time to get out of the vent before there are explosions inside. I did notice, however, if you're inside the vent but within the yellow walls, you won't take any damage. The yellow walls indicate where you can turn around, and I guess it works as a sort of safe zone as well. I'm not entirely sure since I usually just nope out of the vents when the purge is activated. After the purge, you'll get a little pop-up that says something along the lines of "Everyone thinks you are dead," which will give you some time to regroup. Some pirates will be equipped with heavy armor. I don't know if they have a specific term in game, but I like to refer to them as juggernauts. Because of their heavy armor, these guys have double the health and cannot be pounced on when stunned. They are also resistant to the destabilizing airlocks, so flipping those switches won't impact the juggernauts at all. You'll just end up looking like a fool. Juggernauts are equipped with a grenade launcher, so setting them off creates quite the chaos. All space pirates have a few more things in common. If you try to throw an item at a pirate when they're looking at you, they will actually sidestep and dodge the item. This makes the panic throw turn into just a waste of an item. I'm not sure if this is something that any pirate can do, but some pirates can place gas mines in the ship to stun you. I liked to bait pirates near the mines, then throw an item at it to set it off. Lastly, all pirates are also equipped with the Skull Saver. This is probably the coolest form of hiding bodies I've ever experienced in the stealth genre. When you eliminate a pirate, a countdown will start. I think it's 30 seconds. And after said countdown, their head will pop off. You can also eject the head manually, but you can't just ignore the bodies forever. Once this head pops off, it will slowly start moving towards a respawn station on the ship. These are little purple plates on the floor, and it will actually show a link between the head and the respawn point as it moves. In other words, if you don't get rid of the heads, the pirates will just keep coming back. It's pretty funny to listen to the heads as they're moving and yelling at you, saying things like, "Just you wait until I'm back." Now, if you do grab the head and put it in your inventory, you can prevent the pirate from respawning. Naturally, this is temporary, as your main goal is just to get the head into space. Once the pirate is in space, they are eliminated from that mission, although I don't think they actually die according to the lore. To get the heads into space, you basically just follow the same steps you took to get yourself off the ship. Windows, airlocks, or trash chutes, but there is one additional option. Skull savers can also be flushed down the toilet, but doing so will destroy the toilet, and there are typically a limited amount per mission. This item is a major part of the personality of this game, and I think it is a great example of said personality. When you have a skull saver in your inventory, you'll hear muffled talking as they're hurling insults at you. And if you hold them in your hand, you can actually listen as they yell, "Put me down," and "I would totally beat you if I had my legs." That's not verbatim, but I think you get the gist. There was one time that a space pirate had an entire paragraph to yell at me, and I think I'll read it for you now. "If I still had my legs, I'd kick your butt. I'd put you in a headlock and just flip you right over. Your face would be paste. We wouldn't even be having this conversation. You'd be nothing to me. I wouldn't even look at you. It would be over instantly. I'm not even bragging. It's just the truth. I've done plenty of guys like that. I have notches on my gun. Each notch is like 10 guys. I'm not even joking." This paragraph caught me so off guard when this happened, since I think it was the only time I got more than just a sentence. I also appreciate when you throw the skull saver out, the pirates will start yelling, "Don't you do it," or just screaming, "No, no, 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 no." It definitely made me think of the Punisher meme every single time. If a skull saver is destroyed rather than thrown into space, it will actually spawn at the lost and found, then slowly start moving back to the respawn point it is associated with, which made for the occasional long range pathing, and that's pretty funny. I think that covers everything for the actual pirates, but we do have a few more things to cover. On one mission, there are book gates that will shock you if you're carrying any books. This can, of course, be used to your advantage by throwing a book through the gate when a pirate is walking through. As per usual in the stealth genre, this game also features cameras. If you are spotted by a camera, it will trigger the alarm, which will spawn in a swordfish and activate a ceiling turret. The cameras and turrets could be taken over by hack grenades, as mentioned earlier, but you can also override the cameras by pressing a button in a nearby vent, which also provided a little screen for you to switch between all cameras and see what they were seeing. Each camera has a separate override button. As I mentioned earlier, you will need keys to unlock certain doors. These keys are typically either carried by a pirate or lying around the ship. If a pirate is carrying a key, you can eliminate them, or you can sneak up behind them to pickpocket. Pickpocketing in Skin Deep is accomplished by staying within a certain distance as a bar fills up, and once full, you get the item. However, once you take the item, the pirate will typically react to the pickpocketing sound, so you need to have an escape route in mind to not get caught. If a door is locked, it will be barricaded by either a yellow or blue bar and require a key of the corresponding color to unlock, or again, just throw a hack grenade at it. Using a yellow or blue keycard will unlock all doors on the ship that correspond to that card, and the metal bar blocking the door will fall and can be picked up to throw or bash enemies with. On some missions, there were mines attached to the outside of the ship, so you had to be careful when maneuvering in space, as getting too close would cause them to blow up. Lastly, as I mentioned earlier, you will need to flip the switches on fuse boxes to unlock the windows, vents, trash chutes, and airlocks. As you progress, the pirates will start to put jammers on said switches, requiring you to find a 4-letter password to unlock the jammer before flipping the switch. Finding the passwords usually just involves looking around the ship for pirate tablets or notes left behind by the cats. Each mission could potentially have all 4 fuse boxes locked, but it varies throughout the game. Unlocking the fuse boxes is actually not a necessity, but it will most certainly come in handy. Skin Deep isn't the hardest game in the world, but there are definitely plenty of tense moments that will challenge you, especially the final mission. In the final mission, your mini-map is disabled and there are no info centers. There are only wall-mounted maps with the helpful "You are here" arrow. Traversing through this level was much more difficult with the lack of direction and information. These missions can also be much more difficult depending on what items you're actually able to find. Countless times throughout my playthrough, I was in a room with a pirate, but only had books to throw at him, meaning, do not engage. You really have to pick your fights in this game, and you can't always just eliminate everyone in sight. The biggest pro in the tension category would be how much the game evolves over time. It feels like they're constantly adding new elements, whether that's threats such as the Juggernaut's jammers or reinforcements, or if it's tools such as guns and fancy grenades. The game really doesn't let you get too comfortable. Games typically get harder and harder as they progress, but a lot of the time that can be artificial difficulty, with enemies doing more damage or having more health and nothing else. In Skin Deep, the new difficulties actively impact how you play the game. If you walk into a room with a Juggernaut, you know you can't just throw down a banana peel, jump on his back, and call it a day. The more you progress through the game, the more information you have to process, and I'm all in on that. When it comes to the tools, I find myself extremely impressed, but also I feel like something is sort of missing. I'm not quite sure how I want to word this, but I'm going to try it anyway. Scavenging through the ship looking for items is exciting because it keeps every encounter fresh. But after a while, constantly getting stuck in certain situations with nothing can get a little annoying. I think if there was maybe one item you started with, then this feeling would be a little different, since it would let you build more of a connection with said item. But because you never know what you'll find, you end up carrying around random bits and pieces, hoping for the best. I don't want to call this a complaint, since I really enjoyed the gameplay loop. But again, I just feel like something small was missing from the experience. It's somewhat similar to a battle royale in that regard, I suppose. Running around looking for the items you want, but ending up just using whatever you can find. I will say, there are times when it does feel a bit repetitive, but I think the other mechanics constantly evolving somewhat overshadows the repetitive nature. Although the loop does start to fall into a pattern of unlock all fuse boxes, hack all the cameras, then slowly start taking out the pirates and freeing the cats. It should absolutely be noted that this gameplay style allows for quite a bit of creativity, and I will never ever be upset about a game rewarding me for my bullshit. Perhaps the biggest appeal of this game, however, is its personality. I mean, right off the rip, we've got skull savers. What an absurd mechanic to add, and letting these heads hurl insults at you the whole time is next level. Not to mention, the entire objective of this game is to free talking cats from their spaceship. Yeah, we've got cats flying around in space and coexisting with humans. On this point, I will say I'm a little disappointed that there weren't any cat enemies. I mean, if we're coexisting with cats, then surely there's some pirate cats out there as well, but that's just a random thought. Every single cutscene just proves more and more how unique and creative this game is. This game is just funny and reminds me a lot of The Spy Who Shrunk Me, which I covered in episode 8 of this series. Both of these games just know exactly what they want to be, and they refuse to compromise. I have seen some negative reviews on Steam talking about bugs present in the game, but I only ever really had one issue in my playthrough. Towards the end of the game, I believe it was actually after beating the final mission, the red dots which show on screen when you're injured were stuck on my screen, and in fact are still stuck on my screen. Anytime I replay a mission now, I actually start at 3 health instead of 5, proving that somehow I'm just permanently injured in the ship, and I was for the end of the game. Luckily, just hitting a health station fixes this problem in the mission, but every time I complete a level and return to the ship, the red injury dots pop back up. It's a little annoying, but not the end of the world. It was really just more annoying during the end of the game since all the cutscenes and walking simulator-esque sequences just had blood on my screen, slightly obscuring my vision. I really enjoyed my time with Skin Deep and really don't have any major complaints. As I said, the game can start to be a little repetitive, but by the time it hits that point, the game is practically ending, and the final mission is just so much more difficult that those feelings immediately fade. I really appreciate how they raised the stakes on the final mission of the game, and that just by making one or two little changes, they completely alter your perspective. Skin Deep will undoubtedly be in contention for one of my favorite games of 2025, and I don't think I'll be forgetting this weird and unique experience anytime soon.